Well, we finally know what all is in Ikoria, and while it was a bit of a rough start for me, especially with a bunch of new and complicated keywords that I will inevitably have to explain to someone, there definitely is a lot of power here, especially for different formats. But today I'm going to be talking about the one that is going to be the most accessible for most people for the foreseeable future, that being standard through Magic Arena. Today I picked out the top 5 cards that I think are going to be the strongest cards coming into standard from Ikoria. I might be wrong, because I don't know how to gauge some of these cards, especially the ones with the mutate mechanic, because I haven't seen the mechanic in action. But without further ado, let's start with number 5. Whirlwind of Thought. While this card does seem more like a card suited for Commander, it does also fit nicely into an already very prominent deck in this format, that being Jeskai Fires of Invention. The deck already runs a lot of non-creatures, and getting an additional card draw is what the deck really wants to do to be able to keep putting on pressure. This one isn't higher on the list because while it is a card that I can definitely see Fires playing, there's another card on this list that I can honestly see them playing instead and just ignoring this one completely. Speaking of, number 4. Have you read Inspiring Ultimatum? Draw 5, deal 5, gain 5. Well, it doesn't sound as commandery as the other cards in the Ultimatum cycle. This card seems like it will shine in standard, especially in the Fire shells. Enter the God Eternals was a card that didn't do half as much as this one does, and it still saw play. While the mana cost is probably too restrictive in other decks, Fires doesn't care. And this card really feels like a cast 3 different cards for the price of one of their 2 spells per turn rule. It removes a threat, pretty much ensures you draw a threat, and pushes you out of lethal range. With that out of the way, let's move on to number 3. Song of Creation. This is one where, while it doesn't really slot into an already existent deck, I can easily see it becoming one of its own, especially with the tools that it has available right now. Main tools being Uro, Arboreal Grazer, and Growth Spiral. The capacity the current standard format has for dropping additional lands is staggering, and the downside of having to discard your hand is mitigated by the fact that you can just escape an Uro, or some other escape card with all the leftovers and grave you'll have to get the ball rolling all over again. If I had to bet what kind of deck was coming out of this card, it would be a Lotus Breach style combo deck that casts this card and then wins on this or the next turn, with something like Fae of Wishes searching out a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. But getting off of the Song of Creation combo hype train, let's move on to the 2 cards that I think are so good that I don't see any feasible reality where they're not going to see play. Now, back in the days of Kamigawa, there was a common blue creature that passed on into the tomes of legend. That creature was Ninja of the Deep Hours, a simple but elegant card that allowed for additional card draw when it dealt damage, often through the power of ninjutsu. Here in Ikoria, we have a very similar card in the form of cedar octopus. While it doesn't have the ninjutsu, it does have flash and mutate instead, meaning that it definitely has the potential to win games off of the pure amount of advantage you're going to get off of these draw triggers. With such an efficient cost and powerful ability, I believe that cedar octopus 2 can be a splendid ninja. Without further ado, on to the final one, and if you haven't guessed it already, it's Vivien Monster's Advocate. Nissa Who Shakes the World is probably considered by most, if not all, the most prominent planeswalker in all of Standard at the moment. The only card giving her any competition at this point is Teferi Time Raveler. Vivien the Monster Lawyer almost does the same thing, but without the emblem effect of Nissa, the extra mana from the forest, and the token only getting one of keywords instead of the haste and vigilance like the animated lands from Nissa do. But in exchange, you get to choose between 3 different keywords for the token that you get that's the exact same size as the animated land. You get to cast creatures off the top of your deck. And finally, you get to tutor up a second creature straight to field off of a cast with the -2 ability. And that extra creature has to be stifled. It cannot be countered because it is not a cast. So, as a hypothetical, you could cast Questing Beast and then search up Burrow. This card is incredibly powerful, and I see in no way that it's not going to see any play in some form in Standard. Well, those are my thoughts on which cards from Ikoria I think will have the biggest impact in Standard. What are y'all's take on Ikoria? Post which cards you think are going to make waves in Standards in the comment section down below. And I should have a video discussing what from Ikoria will impact Pioneer up early next week, along with a deck tech of something that I want to try out in Pioneer when I finally get into that format. Especially because cards from Ikoria make it actually playable. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.